Township special trustee meeting Monday, April 13th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Call the roll.
Lori, please call roll.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Okay.
Lori, can you, for case number 812, can you read the public meeting notice?
The purpose of the hearing is so the trustees may review and act on a text amendment to the Beavercreek Township zoning resolution, Article 20, signs. The text amendment proposed by zoning staff would amend the language of various paragraphs of Article 20 to allow the placement of small temporary signs away from the premises of the activity or product that they advertise. Currently, no off-premise signs are permitted in the unincorporated territory of Beavercreek Township.
Board, before we get started, and for all those that are joining us on YouTube Live, for those who are going to be making comments, you are limited to 250 characters. If you do put your comments into the comment section, we will read it into record. And with that, I will turn it over for staff report and explanation of the hearing.
All right, so I'll give you my staff report. This is Max McConnell, Associate Economic and Zoning Administrator. Let me just pull it up for you here. Yeah, so the zoning office is updating language in the Beavercreek Township zoning resolution to reflect changing legal requirements. Recently, a U.S. Supreme Court ruling declared that localities could not regulate signage based on the informational content of the signs. The ruling was made on First Amendment grounds. This ruling conflicts with a number of sections in the Township zoning resolution, and as such, the zoning office asked the trustees to approve changes to the zoning resolution that will bring it in line with emerging legal consensus. Essentially, our resolution must not consider the informational content of a sign when regulating signage. We must only regulate sign density, sign construction or maintenance, the duration of sign display, and other requirements which do not take into account what is written on the sign. This initiative began after the Township zoning enforcement officer was required to remove a yard sale sign. The sign was placed with the property owner's permission and did not violate any of the size or material requirements of the resolution. However, the current language does not allow for any quote-unquote off-premise signs, which refer to any sign promoting activity at a location other than where the sign is erected. As such, the yard sale sign had to be removed because it was on another property than the actual yard sale was being held. The township did not intend to disallow the posting of such signs, which we feel benefit the community. Additionally, defining a sign as off-premise requires consideration of the informational content of that sign. The zoning office brought a suite of changes to Article 20 of the zoning resolution before the zoning commission. These include the removal of language which references signs' informational content. It also includes changes to the maximum allowable number of signs in any given lot, which is a function of the road frontage on that lot. Signs must now be set back further from the edge of pavement and rights of way. Any signs displayed for longer than 7 consecutive days will require a sign permit, and no temporary signs may be displayed for more than 30 consecutive days. Additionally, verbiage was changed within the enforcement subsection that allowed the enforcement officer to more easily observe if a sign is not set back far enough from the edge of pavement. The zoning commission agreed with the proposed changes, requesting a few tweaks to the verbiage that are reflected in the Exhibit A that accompanies this case. The township's legal counsel, Don Frick, has reviewed the proposed changes and sees no legal conflicts with them. The zoning office is committed to maintaining every resident's right to freely express their political views. As such, part of the changes to Article 20 include a waiver of the sign density and duration of display requirements during the period of time surrounded by any scheduled election. So that is before 30 days leading up to election and 5 days following it, Any lot may have an unlimited number of temporary signs displayed, provided that the signs have a permit on file and meet all other requirements. This was a point of contention for the Regional Planning Committee, who did not give their recommendation for the proposed changes. Members of the review board were concerned that the language would somehow infringe on political speech. However, after discussing the issue with the township's legal counsel, the zoning office believes that the language permits a practically unlimited amount of political speech during periods of time surrounding scheduled elections. In fact, by regulating signs without referencing their informational content, the zoning office is neutrally restricting only the duration, construction, density, and placement of temporary signs. In summary, the zoning office believes that the proposed amendment to Article 20 of the Township Zoning Resolution will fairly balance the rights of residents and the aesthetic character of the township. The zoning office respectfully asks the trustees pass the proposed text amendment. So that is my staff report to give you an idea of kind of what this has gone through. It's been through zoning commission, it's been through regional planning. And I did mention that regional planning did not give their recommendation on this one. In fact, I asked that it be pulled from consideration after about 45 minutes of discussion, hinging on, like I said, that idea that somehow this would restrict political speech, specifically during their only qualm was with the period of time leading up to a primary election. Those last, that primary season, quote unquote, lasts for a number of months. And so their concern was that what if somebody wanted to support 4 or 5 different primary candidates? That'd be 4 or 5 different signs, which most lots won't have the frontage for, especially residential lots. Would that not restrict their speech? I admit that, yes, by restricting the number of signs that we allow any citizen to have in their yard, we are essentially restricting their speech. But we are doing it neutrally as a function of the number of signs and not the informational content on those signs. So we are, I don't think, and after speaking with Dawn, and she can please, give her interpretation as well, but I don't believe that we are restricting speech in any way, shape, or form, nor are we favoring one type of speech over another. So this is more about allowing us to have a cap on the number of signs that people have during most of the year, and then during that period of elections, it's actually, that cap is removed. So we feel like we've done pretty much everything we can do aside from letting people have unlimited signs all the time, all year long. Yeah, go ahead, please.
What we failed to do is cite the zoning commission meeting minutes and the recommendations.
Pardon me, we do have the zoning commission meeting minutes here, and their recommendation, let me find it here in the meeting
We
minutes.
started out with 8:13, so you might want
Yeah, thanks. No, 813's.
The minutes are in your packet, board.
Yeah.
On page,
Oh.
starting on page 3, and then on.
So yeah, page 5 starts case number 812's minute meeting. What you would find on case number 12, which is the one that we're talking about here. So, let's see here in.
And then highlighted section is their recommendation is they, on page 8, 9, and 10 is, in the yellow section there is their recommended changes.
So essentially, we brought a version to
Page
them.
17 of 66, right? Of the packet?
Yes. Of
Okay.
the packet, it's, yes.
Page 17, yeah, okay.
Well, page 17 is what the zoning recommendation as a part of their exhibit is recommending. Exhibit A is a part of the sample resolution to the board.
Okay.
I'm muted.
Ms. Frick, do you have anything?
No, I mean, I think Max, Mr. McConnell, he summed it up pretty well. I mean, the key behind sort of the regulations on this after a relatively recent Supreme Court law case that came down a couple of years ago that public entities are dealing with all over, sort of how do we address this in its kind of most simplest terms is you shouldn't have to read the sign to determine whether or not it's allowed. So you can regulate things like size, location, numbers, things like that. But you shouldn't do any type of regulation that if you have to read the sign to determine whether or not it's violating, then that's the problem, because that's a content-based restriction then. So I think in addressing the concerns of regional planning is, they essentially are saying because we limit those political signs to the 30 days before and the 5 days after, that's somehow limiting the speech. And it's really not, because we're limiting, or we're actually opening it up during that time period to all signs. It's just that with it, we've only limited the time frame at 30 days.
Thank you. Since there's not an applicant to hear from, it's really essentially the zoning commission and staff. So now we would have to open up the public hearing for anyone that want to speak for the application or against the application. And we have a few people on live chat now. So if anybody would like to comment on case number 812, please do so, and we'll read it into record.
I think so. Yeah.
As we're doing this, staff, did we receive any emails regarding this case to be read into the record?
We did not receive any public statements via email.
Board, we'll give it a few more minutes because there is a little bit time delay between the time we speak and it's live on YouTube.
Yep.
You want to?
Do we have comments coming in?
Board, we're not seeing any
Questions?
comments from the YouTube live chat. No, we're not seeing any comments.
Board, we don't have any comments, so we'll just need a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Okay, board, this is your opportunity as on the part of the public hearing to have any questions or comments regarding or deliberation amongst yourselves regarding case number 812, signs.
I didn't have any questions or comments. I thought that our staff did a good job of putting this together and finding a good remedy.
I have a question. Why was the time period chosen for 30 days prior to scheduled primary, general, or local election? Why just?
So the 30-day period was a holdover from our previous language.
Are we still muted?
I think you can hear us, correct?
Yeah, that you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that 30 days leading up to and 5 days following was actually found in we're not changing that time period.
Okay.
What we've done is during that time period allowed for an unlimited number of signs. And because we changed the sign density requirements, as in, if you pass this, what will happen now is the typical resident will be allowed to display one temporary sign plus an additional temporary sign for every 150 feet of frontage that their property has, that lot has. So most residents will be able to display 2 temporary signs at any given time throughout the year. And that period of time that they're allowed to display a sign consecutively is 30 days. Now, we've said during the 30 days leading up to an election and 5 days following, they can have an unlimited number of signs in their yard or lot. So we've waived that density requirement. And we've also said that normally a temporary sign displayed for more than 7 days must have a permit attached to that sign. Now we're saying you don't need, with those quote unquote election signs, we're not requiring the person who has the sign in their yard to get a permit. We're requiring, like normal, the folks who want to pass out those signs to obtain the permit, and then they can display as many of those signs as they want to, as long as they have the property owner's permission to do so.
Okay. So that was already there in the
Yeah, that
language.
time period was, already there.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So Max,
Go ahead.
Max, the recommendation is framed around residential lots. So what's the situation on commercial properties?
So commercial properties, actually, the only difference is that temporary signs would be 1 + 1 for every 200 feet of frontage on a non-residential lot. So commercial lots they need a little bit more road frontage to display that third sign during the normal period of time for temporary signs, but there will be no difference between a commercial lot or a residential lot during the period of time before and after elections. They will have the same amount as any other lot in the township during that time.
Okay, is it as simple as on a commercial property, if I reposition the same sign, is that considered to have been moved and a new sign, or is that the same sign?
No, we referenced this is the only point in the document where we reference the informational content of the sign, but only in that a sign that has the same informational content as another sign is considered the same sign. So if you take a sign that says, vote for X, and you move it 30 feet to the left, it's the same sign. It's just in a different position, which means you would either need to get a permanent sign permit if you'd want to continue to display that during non-election times, or during election times that it must come down 5 days following the election.
But that's kind of moot because I could just leave it up for another year until the next election.
Well, except that a temporary sign in the language may not be displayed for more than 30 consecutive days in a 6-month period. So that's existing language in the signs. We've waived that as well during the period of time leading up to and following an election.
Okay, but a temporary sign can advertise a business that's not located at that property?
A temporary sign can essentially be anything that isn't considered obscene by the state of Ohio. And we cannot differentiate between what's on one sign and what's on another one.
Okay. And so,
Mr. Craig, just to sort of address what I think you might be trying to get at is when it comes to commercial signs and commercial property, that's where a lot of the questions have arisen in how that's going to be interpreted by the courts in light of the Supreme Court's ruling. And it really hasn't been fleshed out yet. So I think that's where, I think what we're trying to do is address it in the terms of what we know now. But the courts may adjust that as time goes by, particularly with respect to commercial signs and commercial property. It just hasn't been yet. There hasn't been enough time for that stuff to really be fleshed out through the courts yet.
sure. Well, as Fred, you'll recall, I had personal experience with the BZA over on a business of my own where I was requesting a setback variance and a number of buildings I could build on one property. And there was a debate that evening about temporary signs being used on the property. And it was a matter of how long they were up and if they were rotated and if it was the same sign in the same position. So I'm just trying to make sure we have clarity that, number one, a commercial business, and I know this was a contention in the city for a while, where city of Beavercreek, where a business was putting a temporary sign on another business's property with their permission, advertising a business that was not at that location. And so I know that was a concern at one point. And then the second piece of it is, if it is advertising something related to the business that's on the property, just clarification as far as, and Max did clarify that, as far as if you have same sign, two different signs, different language, and you rotate them, or you have the same sign and you move it on the property to two different locations, it's still considered one sign.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm just trying to think through what realistic things that could happen. A business puts up feather signs, or they put up any kind of grand opening sign or re-grand opening sign or whatever it is. So they have the right to market their property, but they understand the rules are clear enough. We've thought through it. That's all. Yard sale signs are one thing. They typically have permission or they don't, but the business signs tend to bring out some of the complaints. So, if someone floods the front of their property with temporary signs.
And I think the density requirement is really what's going to mitigate that flood. They might be allowed to have 3 or so if they've got a long stretch of frontage, but that's going to be about it for almost every lot besides some really large industrial or agricultural properties. So.
And when we came up with 1 per 150 or 1 per 200 feet of frontage, was that arbitrary, or what benchmark did we use to come up with that?
So the idea of using a function of lot frontage comes from Scalia's kind of his comments on the case. He recommends that as a way to neutrally limit the number of signs on any given lot. The number of 150 feet versus 200 feet, that was chosen by me as a number that I looked at and saw that it would probably result in about 2 temporary signs per residential yard at any given time besides election time, which I feel like is enough to allow people to have their temporary signs that they want to have, but not allow other actors to say put 50 commercial We Buy mattress signs along a vacant, lot frontage, or So it kind of allows people to express themselves. It allows them their speech while restricting the ability to get that flood of signs that we worry about in the township.
I guess, Ms. Frick, though, if we're stipulating how many signs we can put per 150 feet, aren't we in turn limiting their speech?
No, because it's not looking at the content of the speech, which is the key. There's nothing that says you can't limit the number of signs. You just can't delineate between the content of the signs. So,
Is there anything stipulating how many times I can say it?
no one specifically challenged that at this point, but again, I think given the parameters of what the courts put out there, I don't see that as an issue, because again, we're allowing the speech, we're just, and again, this is just for temporary signs, but we're still allowing the speech, we're just limiting it within the context of, a legitimate governmental interest.
And just to point out, Board, we have received complaints over the years regarding content of permanent signs like the LED signs, and we cannot control that. So we've told residents clearly that is their right to say what they are saying on these signs. All we can do as a township or as a code enforcement officer out enforcing this is to go to the actual code that allows, like we're saying in this case, the number of signs, or whether that sign we got a complaint about is within the boundaries of the zoning resolution. Other than that, we have not ever said you have to take down this sign because it's offensive to somebody else. We cannot do that.
Well, in some of our churches, I mean, it's not just for-profit businesses. We've had churches that have had temporary sign where they're running a program, whether it's for heroin addicts or whoever it is. They're running a program that many people view as good, but they have a permanent sign, they add a temporary sign that stays up for 6 to 9 months. So,
Correct.
so in that case, they would only be permitted to have one sign per. Is a church considered 200 feet or 150 feet?
I believe it's written as residential and non-residential. So if it was not zoned residential, it would be 200 feet. Now, this is just the temporary signs. So every kind of plot also has a given number of permanent signs that they are able to display as well.
Sure.
So this would not limit their permanent sign display. It wouldn't change that in any way. It would just focus on the temporary signs.
And where did agricultural fall in?
In terms of the lot frontage?
Is it classified?
It's not.
Yeah, it would be non-residential. Yeah.
So it'd be the higher amount. So really what the zoning commission is recommending and what was brought forward to you is to just delineate between residential and non-residential. And this addresses the concern that has definitely come to the township and complaints we received is really those temporary signs of, as pointed out by staff, is the mattress places that go up over the weekend and stay up for multiple weeks. And, that's what we're kind of addressing here. I mean, we've gotten citizens' complaints about those signs as well. And we also identify the right-of-way here too.
Well, you also have the model home, essentially the new residential development signs that go up on the corners. I mean, they have professional crews that come around at 3 o'clock in the morning and put them up and take them down. So obviously those would fall, if a sign can only be up 30 days within a 6-month period, there's more than 15 weekends in a 6-month period.
Well, so it reads as it may be displayed for 30 consecutive days in a 6-month period. So I'm not saying it's right, and it's not because they don't get permits for them. So they're just not legal signs because they don't have the permit. But if they did, say, get a permit for those signs and put them up for a weekend and then took them down at the end of that weekend, that would be a display for 3 days and not and then they put them up again the next week, and that's just non-consecutive displays of the signs. It
Okay.
doesn't address that issue. Yeah.
Which goes back to my original point. If I put a sign up and then I move it to a different location,
If you kept the sign in that same lot for 30 days and moved it to a bunch of different places every day, it would still be considered the same sign displayed consecutively. But if you put up a sign for 3 days and then removed it for a week and put it up for another 3, it would not be considered a consecutive days of display.
but actually what I could do is I could put up 6 different signs, one for 30 days, and rotate my 6 signs through for 6 months.
So I'll
Or
have
they
to
can do
look.
it for 2 days and put it back up, and you've,
I could leave it up for 30 days, take it down, put a different sign up on the 31st day. It's a different sign.
I suppose that, yes, in that the way that you frame it there, yes, people could, just like almost any other section of code, they could do some serious
And runs.
yeah, that, you know, it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. I'll be the first to admit that, but it is, I believe, a pretty significant improvement over what we had, and also eliminates all of the language that references informational content on the signs, which is also it's an improvement for us. Yeah.
And as Don pointed out at the zoning commission meeting, this is not a final product. We can go back and tweak it as we come across issues that had not come up before. So we have the ability, it's a living document, so we have the ability to go back and refine it till we get it where we need it.
So I'm not attempting to be argumentative, but what I've shown is that within less than 10 minutes, we've come up with a workaround. And so if the objective is to have a clear code that we can enforce and that our residents and our businesses understand, but we can come up with a workaround in 5 to 10 minutes for it, why are we trying to regulate something that we can't enforce?
Well, I mean, you're right in the fact that enforcing, especially those weekend crew sign, that, I mean, we don't have an enforcement officer that operates on the weekend, and they know that, which is why they do it on the weekends.
Oh, we could, let me clarify that. You know, I mean, it's only gonna take, in regards to enforcement.
Well, yeah, right.
We can alter schedules to make sure that we are catching and sending letters out to those who are not getting permits.
The other issue you have, Mr. Kratz, is if we start delineating between those particular types of signs, then again, we're looking at content. And so then you have to decide whether or not, do you just want to, I mean, the other option is to just not allow temporary signs altogether. So, you know, this is an attempt to allow for temporary signs within certain parameters without differentiating between different types of signs given their content.
So whether it's furniture
We lost-
signs or for sale signs, garage sale signs, neighborhood sign, like Hunters Point does a entire neighborhood garage sale. So, I mean, we got to be careful. I agree with Ms. Frick. We could say, that's it, no temporary signs, and we'll pick them up as we're out there. And that's not our intent. Our intent is to allow some of those signs to go up for the neighborhood garage sales or individual sales, but to have at least some language to allow our staff to enforce the ones that tend to be trying to get around those rules. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think
I
the-
understand the intent. Yeah, it's just a matter of how do you frame that, and then how do you enforce that? So, or can you enforce it? And if you can't enforce it, why did you make it a regulation? But I mean, from a business standpoint, you should be able to have a coming soon business or sign, and then you should have a grand opening sign, then you should be able to have a promotion sign. Uh, So that's my opinion. So,
I do think that the way this is written, the way you're talking about, you could have your grand opening sign for 30 days and then your, other sign for 30 days following that, and you're now open, your sales sign after that. They would be different. They would have not the same informational content. So you could have theoretically temporary signs, 2 or 3 or however many you're allowed in that lot the whole year round, as long as they were not the same sign for longer than 30 days at a time.
right, but that goes back to my point of is Ms. Brown supposed to take a picture of it and then document which sign was up? How do you enforce that?
It does present enforcement challenges, but I will say, I think, and you can maybe comment on this, Lori, too, but our current code also presents a number of those same kind of enforcement challenges. And one of them is, let's say Lori is driving around and she sees a yard sale sign a block away from the address that it mentions. Right now, she must take that sign down. She can't even use her judgment to ignore it because she has to enforce the code neutrally. So we're trying to allow those things and at the same time give ourselves, like Alex said, a way to go after people who don't get permits for their signs. If she can document a sign and we go back to the permit file and don't see a permit for that sign, doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter when it was up, how long it's been up, it doesn't have a permit, it comes down. If it does have a permit, then they're, in my view, following the correct steps to go about, getting their message out. They're doing it legally. And
I'm out in the township every day. I drive around different areas. And as far as the temporary signs, it would be, it's not a perfect system, but when I first notice a sign, I will document that in my log, and then I will watch it for 7 days. They're allowed to have it up for 7 days without a permit. If it gets to be the 8th day and it's still up and I don't have a permit for it, at that point I can pull it. And I will document all along the way there. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's better than what we had before, I think. It makes it a little easier for me with regard to code enforcement.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
I didn't see anything in there as far as condition of the sign. Sometimes that doesn't apply, but
so yeah, it references earlier in Article 20, and let me find it in the language here.
That's not being changed.
Yeah, that section on the condition of signs is not being changed, but it is section 20.12.07 mentions
okay.
So.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure there was some kind of.
There is.
Yes.
Any other discussion or questions?
Okay, board, there is a sample resolution on page 15 of your packet that shows, that has the exhibit with the changes that we discussed. And if you like, you could do a motion just to pass the motion as presented, or the resolution as presented. Or we go through any modifications.
Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution for the text amendment to Article 20, signs of the Beavercreek Township zoning as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Ms. Brown, can you read the next case number? If you're reading it, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Let me start over. Zoning case 813. The purpose of the hearing is so the trustees may review and act on one or more proposed amendments to the Beavercreek Township zoning resolution being proposed by the Zoning Commission. The proposed amendments would change regulations pertaining to the permitting of private residential swimming pools in Beavercreek Township. Specifically proposed are changes to allow automatic pool covers in lieu of fences and other provisions. No changes are being proposed pertaining to public, community, or club swimming pools.
And we have public comment, and we need to just address it that it's part of the packet.
What we need to do first is listen to the staff report and then hear from the applicant. The applicant's application is also in your packet as well, but we'll turn it over to staff.
All right, so the staff report for case number 813. The zoning office received a proposed text amendment to Article 18.23 of the township's zoning resolution from a resident of the township. The resident submitted the proposed text amendment language to the zoning office, which then brought the proposed language before the zoning commission for consideration. The proposed amendment will allow the use of electronic pool covers to secure residential pools in lieu of a vertical barrier such as a fence on lots of 1 acre or more in size. The resident who brought the amendment for review applied for a pool permit that specifically stated that fence requirements outlined in our current zoning resolution. The resident then constructed the pool but not the fence. When the resident was notified of their noncompliance, they submitted the proposed amendment language, Exhibit A, for this case. If the proposed changes are rejected, the resident will continue to be in noncompliance with the zoning resolution and enforcement actions will need to be taken. Allowing for an electric pool cover in lieu of fence is a common practice in local jurisdictions. Xenia Township allows for an electric cover, as does the city of Kettering. The city of Beavercreek allows for a cover with no fence only on lots which are 2 acres or more in size. The chief concern for pool regulations is the safety of the residents of Beavercreek Township. Pools are often described legally as attractive nuisances. If not secured, they can invite unintended users into a potentially dangerous situation. Requiring a fence around a pool is one way to secure it from unintended users. Another way to secure a pool is with a locking electronic pool cover. Both types of barriers require a human operator to physically lock the barrier, whether a latch on a fence gate or a button on a pool cover mechanism. The proposed amendment language requires electronic covers to meet American Society of Testing Materials, or ASTM, standards F1346-91. These same standards are referenced in Xenia Township's and Kettering's codes. The Zoning Commission vigorously debated the proposed text amendment. A major concern was the legal liability of the township if it allowed electronic covers in lieu of fences. The township's legal counsel maintained that the proposed amendment language adequately requires pool owners to secure their unattended pool, either by locking a fence gate or by locking a pool cover. If a resident fails to secure an unattended pool, the township is unlikely to be held legally accountable for any resulting injury. Another concern brought up by the Zoning Commission was the required acreage component of the proposed language. The commission debated whether or not to increase the acreage requirement to 2 acres as seen in the city of Beavercreek's code. The zoning office commented that if electronic pool covers are used properly, it should not matter how large the size of the lot is. ASTM standards include stress test ratings that would allow for multiple adults to walk on them without failing, and include requirements that keep people and objects from slipping through the sides of the cover. In short, an unintended user would need to significantly damage a locked electronic pool cover to gain access to the pool. And as such, the safety of electronic covers hinges on their proper use and not on the lot size and acreage. The Zoning Commission did recommend the proposed language, although the vote was 3-2 in favor. It is important to note that it was not unanimously recommended. However, the Regional Planning Commission did recommend the amendment language for passage. They cited the existing language in neighboring localities, along with recent upgrades to electronic cover technology, as reasons for the recommendation. Their recommendation is included in the trustee materials packet for this special meeting. The Zoning Office recommends one important change to the proposed text amendment. The language submitted by the resident includes references to both electronic and automatic safety covers. The Zoning Office would like to strike any reference to automatic covers, as this is misleading. No cover is safe without the proper operation by a human. We recommend replacing any reference to automatic covers with the word electronic to promote consistency in the language and to ensure residents understand that they must follow the provisions to lock pool covers whenever the pool is unintended. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, the applicant's application, if that makes sense, is on page 22 of your packet. And we will need now to open the public portion of the hearing.
Is that page 22 of the PDF or page 22?
Page 22 of the PDF I sent out, and that's on our website.
Okay.
That is the applicant who made the
Yep. Got it.
zoning and text amendment application.
And I would like to note that the Zoning Office has 4 different letters that were sent to us by the public to be read into the comments. So I don't know if you'd like to do that before or after the online comments.
I would, what I would recommend, board, is that we go ahead and open it to the online comments, and then we go ahead, as we're waiting because of the time delay, that we have staff read the 4 public comments that we received via email. If that's okay.
I think that's good.
So you want me to go ahead and read the statements we have right now while we're waiting on the online ones?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
In the public hearing.
The first one we have is from the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, who live at 345 Woodridge Boulevard. This was received on April 10th via email. Good evening. I hope everyone is healthy and adjusting well to the new normal we find ourselves facing. Before providing comments specific to the proposed text amendment before the trustees this evening, I wanted to clarify a few items. At the Zoning Commission meeting held 5 March, one of the commissioners voted against the text amendment as written because it does not address above-ground pools. While the proposed amendment does not specifically address in-ground or above-ground pools, the requirement of an electronic pool cover in lieu of a fence or wall could apply to either. When a similar amendment was presented to the trustees 3 years ago, 3/27/17, there was significant discussion about trustees' personal experience with neighbors keeping pool covers open. Although I can't speak specifically as to why a cover would be left open, I can only assume the homeowner didn't feel the cover needed to be closed, as the pool also had a fence surrounding it. The amendment as written requires covers be closed when the pool is unattended. My husband and I have been pool people for years. When I lived in Nevada, I had a pool in my backyard. The yard was fenced and we did not have an electronic safety cover. Unfortunately, we have had a family pet who drowned in the pool. This was devastating for the family. As a result, when we first started talking about a pool, we wanted to ensure we had the safest security measures in place. As such, we began researching safety options. While fencing is a common measure to ensure uncontrolled access to private pools is avoided, there are numerous safety concerns with vertical deterrents. In fact, vertical deterrents are frequently seen as a challenge. People are known to climb them or go through slats. Additionally, the majority of people do not lock their fences for numerous reasons: meter reading, yard maintenance, pool maintenance, etc., providing easy access to the pool area. Most importantly, once a vertical barrier is breached, there is no safety protection to the pool itself, providing uncontrolled access. Conversely, horizontal barriers such as electronic pool covers provide an unparalleled level of security, far superior to vertical barriers. Simply stated, they can't be breached. Even if someone were to access a property uninvited, they can't break into the pool cover. The covers are automatically in a locked position when closed and cannot be opened without a key. These covers can be walked on without reaching the pool water. In fact, they must be able to hold in excess of 400 pounds. There are strict standards, ASTM F1346-91, associated with these covers, further ensuring the safety of the cover. The covers can be manually closed in case of power outages or cover malfunction, thus ensuring the pool isn't left open. Further, the cover cannot be opened without power. We understand when we put a pool in our yard, we assume liability for safety of the pool. This is not a liability of the township, but our personal liability. We firmly believe the horizontal barrier of the electronic safety pool cover limits our liability significantly, as it offers more safety precautions than a fence. This is evidenced by statistics that show there have been 0 deaths associated with pools with electronic covers. In fact, in looking at pool statistics, the majority of documented pool incidents are associated with family and friends, and even more so with toddlers getting out of their home unnoticed and going directly into the family pool. Through all of the research we have conducted, it became clear that sole reliance on a vertical barrier does not provide adequate security, as once the barrier is breached, there is full and open access to the pool. However, the horizontal barrier does not need any other security measures, as it cannot be breached. We submitted the proposed text amendment solely on the basis of the superiority of horizontal barriers as a safety feature for pools. Finally, it has become more common to allow for either vertical deterrents, fencing or walls, or horizontal barriers, electric safety pool covers, to be used for pool safety. Either type of deterrent has been deemed acceptable by no less than 18 local communities, to include the City of Beavercreek, Xenia Township, Sugar Creek Township, City of Kettering, City of Oakwood, and Miami Township. Thank you for considering the proposed text amendment. We will be watching the live YouTube feed and can answer any questions as necessary. The second correspondence is from Charlie Schwegman, who lives at 2160 Forest Bend Drive. Statement for April 13th public hearing. My name is Charlie Schwegman, and I live at 2160 Forest Bend Drive in Beavercreek Township. I was the chairman of Sugar Creek Township Zoning Commission for over 15 years, from 1998 to 2013. This issue came up several times in Sugar Creek Township during my tenure as chairman, so I thoroughly understand the pros and cons of this case. During the 2004-2005 timeframe, when a similar zoning change was proposed, the Sugar Creek Zoning Commission and trustees retained the requirement for fencing around pools, even if the pool had a retractable cover. However, since then, my thinking on this issue has evolved, as well as the thinking of the Sugar Creek trustees and zoning commission. Sugar Creek Township recently eliminated the requirement for pool fencing on large lots if you have a pool cover that meets certain industry standards. At this time, I fully support the proposed change in the Beavercreek Township zoning resolutions to allow automatic pool covers to be used in lieu of fences. My thinking on this changed for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I believe it unfair for pool owners to have to bear the cost of a fence when developers are not required to fence in the large retention ponds required in housing developments. These ponds are embedded in densely packed housing developments with quarter-acre lots and smaller, and where there is likely to be a large population of young children. There are numerous retention ponds like this in Beavercreek Township. Retention ponds represent a much greater threat to young children than a private pool with an automatic cover. This is especially true if the covered pool is in a neighborhood where the lot sizes are an acre or greater. Secondly, I think the greater danger to a pool owner is not a toddler wandering into a pool, but preteen or teenage kids entering the pool when the owner is not at home. Kids at this age can easily open a gate or climb a pool fence to enjoy, say, a midnight swim or have a drunken pool party, and the owner is still liable for any damages or injuries that may occur. Only a pool cover can prevent this from happening, and a fence has no value. Remember, a pool owner is highly motivated to keep a pool covered when it is not in use in order to keep the debris out and the heat in. Because of these arguments and the others presented in this public hearing, I strongly urge the trustees to adopt this proposed zoning change. Sincerely, Charlie Schwegman. The third letter is from Brent Peden, who resides at 1917 Forest Bend Drive. Trustees, this is regarding the upcoming zoning case number 813 about private residential swimming pools. My family and I have been Greene County Beavercreek residents since we graduated from college. When we started a family, we always planned for installing an in-ground pool. This was around the time electronic pool covers were becoming more available to residential customers. We have 3 children, and my wife insisted on including the electronic pool cover due to their superiority in safety over a fence. Electronic pool covers are locked and require a passcode to operate. Fences can be breached, animals can dig under them, uninvited people can climb over fences when families are away, and gates can be left open or unlocked. Many communities have fencing requirements related to pool safety that were put in place long before residential pool covers were developed or available. Electronic pool covers can be walked on and are impenetrable. In 2017, I attended the Beavercreek Zoning Committee meeting on this subject. There was some type of task force that had spent months earlier, went researching and collecting a lot of information from industry, residents, and manufacturers. It was very obvious to those in attendance that electronic pool covers are far superior to a fence in ensuring our community residents are safe around pools. In my opinion, if a residential pool has an electronic pool cover, a fence is unnecessary. Sincerely, Brent and Ann Peden. The last one is from Tim and Deanna Braun, who live at 210 Hidden Forest Court. Please see the following statement concerning zoning case 813. We are considering the installation of an in-ground pool at our current residence in Woodridge Estates and wanted to provide our opinion on the current requirement for securing the pool. After some research, we have come to the conclusion that the automatic pool safety cover to be the best option for safeguarding against uncontrolled access. The approved covers to which we are referring are those that meet the safety standards for the American Society for Testing and Materials, ASTM F1346-91, Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC Approved Safety Commission. The ASTM standard has satisfied the standalone barrier requirement in several states, in addition to areas within Ohio. We believe the pool cover not only offers a physical barrier from entering the pool, it also acts as a visual deterrent by removing the enticement to the water. Furthermore, we believe a fence only acts as a deterrent to very young children and may be breached by preteens and older. As the previous owner of a pool on an isolated property in Sugar Creek Township, we experienced the intrusion to our pool by several young adults who took the opportunity of our absence to enter with alcohol to throw an impromptu party. Our current wooded residence in Woodridge offers a similar privacy, and we believe a 5-foot fence will not act as a deterrent to determined preteens, as opposed to a horizontal barrier that would require extensive damage to access the pool. We would like to have the Beavercreek Township zoning changed to include pool covers following the standards stated. Tim and Deanna Braun. That's all I have.
Board, we have one on.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Can't hear you.
Dave, or excuse me, board, I think we have.
Alex, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Muted.
Yeah, how about that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, Randy has a couple from comments via YouTube Live.
Yes, Mr. Thomas Edwards is a resident, stated that Connie.
Can't hear him.
Can you hear me okay?
No, you're kind of muffled, Randy.
Okay, it's not coming across here. 1 second. Okay, Thomas Edwards is making a comment. Connie and I concur with the recommended change to the nomenclature of the pool covers as electronic pool covers. He also adds, and thank you again for considering our proposed changes. We also have a comment from Dave Kramer with Knickerbocker Pools. No comment at this time, but here and listening if any technical questions need to be answered.
And board, that's all we have on the comments through YouTube Live. So we would need a motion to close the public hearing, and then, board, you can deliberate.
So move. So move.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes. Hey, are there any questions that need to be asked by the township trustees or any comment?
I guess commentaries, I was part of the board in 2017 that voted essentially to modify the fence height from 6 feet to 5 feet, but still require a fence, whether the resident essentially wanted to install a retractable cover or not. I was one of those previous pool owners. One of the other trustees actually owned a pool with a retractable cover and had that pool fenced. So there was some personal experience interjected there. I actually reached out and I contacted several residents in the township, some that were pool owners and some that are not pool owners. I called them today, essentially gave them background on the zoning hearing tonight. And first of all, I appreciate the active participation in government from the residents of Wood Ridge. Obviously, this is obviously a concern for those residents. I actually did also reach out to 2 other residents of Wood Ridge and to get their opinion, but also a handful of others. Of the 10 people that I reached out to, 9 of those 10, I'll back up. Of the 10 folks that I reached out to, 4 of those individuals are pool owners. 2 of those individuals have retractable covers on the pool. All of them that have pools have fences around their pools. And the general consensus was that while the cost of putting a fence up wasn't desirable, that in their opinions, a fence still provided a physical, visible barrier. One of the individuals that I spoke to that had a pool with a retractable cover does not have a fence around that pool. I'm sorry, he does have a fence around that pool, but he actually agreed that, in his opinion, the fence was redundant and that the township essentially doesn't have the ability to educate someone to lock their gate or lock their retractable cover. And so it's really up to the property owner. In his opinion, a retractable cover was an acceptable placement for a fence. Out of 10 people, that's the only one that fell on that. The general consensus I heard from these individuals, including the individuals that live in Wood Ridge, was that safety first, and that the incremental cost of adding fence to an in-ground pool, which is roughly between $30,000 and $45,000 or more, when you look at the cost of the pool, the cost of landscaping, not including the cost of the cover, that it was essentially behooved the township to keep that provision in there. It was interesting. One of the individuals actually has an in-ground indoor pool with a retractable cover, and he was the most adamant about the requirement for fencing around any outdoor pool, unless it's in an agricultural setting with maybe 10 acres or larger. To go to some of the comments that were made with regards to lot size, we have developments that have lots where the average lot size is larger than 1 acre. But to run across 1 acre to get to a pool can only take a half acre walk. So with no visible barrier there, my position today hasn't changed from what it was in 2017. I had one of the individuals that has a pool with a retractable cover told me that he's required to essentially keep the pump on top of the cover, because if a child or a pet got on the cover does sag into the water. And if it rains heavy, the cover can get waterlogged on top of it. And so he has to keep a pump on top of that cover to pump the water off the cover. Because obviously you can have enough water on top of a cover for someone to be able to drown. With regards to covers on pools, I know that you can keep solar covers on a pool, you can keep a retractable cover on a pool, but when you're having an event on a weekend or on a Saturday, there's going to be times where you go inside for lunch and that pool is open and exposed. You're not that every time you get in and out of the pool. Not practical. It's not human nature. And so when that pool is unattended, it's exposed and there is no protection for anyone. Are we trying to protect the homeowner from their own pool, or are we trying to protect a kid from next door or across the street that gets curious when the pool's unattended? And that's where I go. So the consensus I heard today from 10 different residents, one of them was in favor of the proposed amendment, 9 were not. And I don't know if they've logged in tonight for YouTube Live or not, but if they have the ability to do that or not. So shared the link. I don't know if they're on. That was the consensus. So with whether it's lot size, at the end of the day, if you don't lock the cover, I had another individual who made the comment, there's been times where he came home when he thought the cover was closed and the cover was open. He honestly couldn't remember if he closed it or not, but it was open. So there's these considerations. It's just an extra added layer of security to have that fence. There's no question, adult, teenager, or an aggressive youngster could easily scale a fence. But it's an extra layer of protection. So.
The layers of protection are crucial in the childhood drownings. I mean, that's the whole point behind a cover and a fence, having chimes on the door, door alarms to alert you, if your child happens to open the door and go out when, you're not, when they slip away, because it can happen in an instant. But those layers of protection, all of them are put in place purposely to create a longer period of time, or something to stop them from being able to access the water, to lead to drowning or a non-fatal drowning. I agree that the pool cover alone is not enough. I understand the fence and the pool cover both as being a large cost in added to purchasing a pool and putting that in. But those retractable covers, like Mr. Kretz said, they do accumulate water on the top of them. You do have to put a pump on there to pump off the excess water in the event of a large rain or anything like that. There's one specific thing that is a save all, meet all in a pool and preventing someone from getting in it or someone from drowning in the pool, whether it be a fence or just a cover or both.
Board, if I can ask a question on legal, because this came up from a neighbor of mine. What is, Don, what authority does any of our staff in the Community Development Risk Department have to enforce this? I mean, we can't, without an open permit, we can't get on a property and say, your pool covers, and there's no one around the pool, your pool cover needs to be closed. What authority does staff have to enforce this?
Well, I mean, you can certainly, you mean if they see that it's open and
Unattended.
Yeah, how do we enforce it? How do I instruct my staff to be out there looking to say, okay, and maybe they are in for lunch, and they didn't close the pool cover. How do we enforce it? Because from what I understand, we don't have the illegal authority unless there's an open permit or we're doing an inspection to go out onto the property to ensure this.
I mean, you can go knock on the door, certainly, and see if they answer the door. You have to be careful walking around to the backyard or anything like that. I mean, yeah, that's a potential enforcement issue that you have, but it's, it's no different than how do you, if you can't see whether there's a fence or not, or if there's a fence gate open, it's the same issue. Obviously, that's probably easier to see, whether that's there or not. So, I mean, that helps with enforcement, but, it's, most of these type of things are, quite frankly, complaint driven anyways. But you're just going to have to attempt to get the residents notice the way you would, on something else that's on their property, by mailing, by knocking on the door, things like that.
Thank you.
To our zoning and risk group, I guess I would challenge back to the zoning commission from a standpoint of when we look to make decisions based on what our peer neighborhoods or communities are doing. I'd ask them to look back at a case where a property owner has half of their property in Beavercreek Township, half of their property in Xenia Township. And Beavercreek Township made a different zoning decision than Xenia Township made, based on the ability to respond as far as water being provided to the facility or the proposed facility, and the ability to be able to respond from a fire suppression standpoint. So making a decision based on what Beavercreek or Xenia Township or Kettering is doing, those are decisions that, in my opinion, those trustees or those councils made, and they'll live with those decisions. At the end of the day, I wouldn't always look I look for benchmarks, certainly, but I wouldn't carte blanche look at what a neighboring community did and assume that it was right. So in some cases it is, in some cases it may not be, in my opinion. So, I think, like Ms. Dean said, adding a pool cover is an excellent way to augment what a fence provides. A fence by itself is better than nothing. This board of trustees, there's no way that we can guarantee that a homeowner will lock a gate or lock a pool cover or close a pool cover. And so what I think we have to do is protect the kids that live next door as best we can. It's the in my opinion, it's the homeowner's responsibility to protect those that they know are in their pool. And it's our job to protect the ones that live next door that may not be able to stop themselves or, as Ms. Dean said, at least be able to slow them down or create a visible barrier. I said it in 2017. I had the pleasure and the joy of having two teenage sons at the same time. And I remember on a day when we had 6 inches of snow and we had one of those, I called it trampoline covers on our pool. And we ended up with a 17-year-old standing in the middle of our pool who didn't know that we had a pool because it was covered in snow and it looked like a grass backyard. They're very easy to run out on until you get in the middle of it and you realize your feet are wet. So some of the retractable pools have a hard shell. I get that. Those covers are 10,000 plus, my understanding. But not all of them do. Some of them have a membrane that retracts.
May I jump in just a bit and just mention that the kind of covers that you're referring to, the 10,000 plus hard covers, those are what you're talking about when you're talking about an ASTM F1346-91 safety standard. You're talking specifically about those very expensive safety rated hard covers. You're not talking about a trampoline, quote unquote, trampoline cover when you're talking about this safety standard. I just did want to point that out. I think that's part of the reason why this attempt at allowing for pool covers in lieu of fences felt different enough to put before the trustees and the zoning commission again.
Those retractable covers, they're not the same as the trampoline quote unquote covers, but they do still allow for water to sit on top. You have to put a pump on the top of those retractable covers because they will collect water on the top. Yes, you can stand on them. You can put like 400 pounds on them, but you still have to have a pump on the top. They will still collect water.
The concern I have is that technology-wise, we have sensors we can put in pools that essentially will pick up shock. So if a pet or a child will fall into a pool unexpected, it'll essentially send an alarm to the homeowner or their cell phone. But that cover relies on the same human to close it as the gate to the fence. And at the end of the day, I think it's a great way to augment a fence, but it's not a substitute. And there are, and I understand we can establish and say it only for this level of fence. Only for this level of retractable. If I were to agree to it, I would not even use the term electronic. I would use retractable and lockable. That meets that standard. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is one that's retractable, one that's lockable, and then the standards. However it's powered or motioned, it's somewhat irrelevant. It's electronic. And the fact, like I said, I reached out to 10 different people, and I honestly expected a little bit more diverse of a response. But like I said, even the individual that has an indoor pool with a practical cup, was most adamant that as a grandparent, he would not want to see pools without some type of fence. And you can control the cost of a fence by putting it around the pool versus around the yard. And I don't know if the objection is cost or if the objection is aesthetics. In some of the comments from the residents of Wood Ridge, it sounded partially both. And I won't disagree that detention basins do create a safety hazard, but they do create a little bit different of a safety hazard. They don't drop to 6 feet at the edge, typically.
And my comments were that I was leaning towards recommending that the resolution be approved as written, but based on Mr. Kretz's information and discussion with the people that own pools, I became more aware of the hazards, as Mrs. Dean had stated also. I appreciate both of your comments. Are we have any more discussion or comments at this time? And
Well, in this case, board, then we would need a motion either to approve or adopt the resolution that was presented, or a motion to deny case number 813 as presented. Correct me if I'm wrong, Don, on that one. Ms. Frick, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's correct.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
I'll make a motion to deny and are we calling it application or the application for case 813?
Yes, 813.
Okay.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yeah.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
yeah,
Thank you, board. That concludes our public hearing. I appreciate working through this unique times of COVID-19. And hopefully maybe another month of public meetings like this. So thank you, board. Have a good evening.
thank you.
Time and consideration, board.
Thank
Do
you.
we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, yep.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
staff,
everyone.
for your work.
Thanks
thank-
to the residents for participating.
Mhm.